I have the really, really hard job of introducing our presenter, Taillon.
Show. I really wanted to see it, but then I had to hide my dress from you because I wanted it to be a surprise. So I get to twirl around here, and I thought I would come out from the podium a little bit. So does anybody know what decade I'm representing today? What decade am I representing? Come on. 70s. Easy, right? Everybody knew that. What about, anybody know what kind of dress this is? What kind of label, what brand it might be? Gunne Sax. Good. Good job, you guys. So Gunne Sax is probably the most recognizable brand from the 70s because of its Renaissance type style, right? Everybody probably had one or knows somebody who had one at one point. Excuse me. This one happens to be a very special dress to me in particular because my mom wore this dress. This was her dress. It is her dress. And she wore it for her homecoming dance in 1974. And she was actually crowned homecoming queen in this dress. So it's a very special dress. And I have no shoes on. You're looking at my shoes. I totally forgot shoes. I was doing hair and makeup back there, and I forgot to put them on. So you'll forget. It kind of fits with the style, though, right? Yeah. So it's also a special dress because it was the dress that my mom wore on her first date with my dad. And so they are still together and happily married, so it's a special dress in that way. So I really love vintage clothing and dresses in particular because they often have very special meaning to people. I'm really hot and nervous, can you tell? Whew, I don't usually do this, usually I'm behind the scenes. So, I'll just take a deep breath here if you don't mind. So, what I've been doing for the last 7 years is I put precious vintage clothing like this into the hands of people who will really treasure them, like I do, and like their original owners have. I tend to think of myself as a foster mother of sorts to things before they can get a home. I find loving homes for them. And sometimes I hear horror stories of people thinking that vintage clothing is worthless and that it just gets discarded after it just gets passed on. And so that really breaks my heart. And so this is why I do this. I can't collect every piece of vintage clothing, so this has been my obsession now, I guess, for 7 years or so. I have a website called Roselein Rarities. Can you guys see me okay? I feel like, is that all right? Roselein Rarities is my website, and I've had it for 7 years, and I currently have over 1,000 vintage pieces in my store. It includes everything from dresses to, I'm getting into more accessories, like necklaces and things to wear to formal events and stuff. Most recently, I have on my front page right now a collection of wicker items. So I have a few wicker chairs from the 70s. And a few wicker monkeys. I actually sent out a wicker monkey today and yesterday, in fact, a little cute basket monkey with sitting on a basket. It was really cute. And I've homed over 2,500 vintage pieces to all over the world. I have a lot of collectors in other places, other countries like Australia, the UK, and France are the big ones. So speaking of Gunne Sax, I have a new friend named Sarah in South Carolina who found her wedding dress with me. She found a vintage Gunne Sax dress from the 70s that she wore for her wedding. And she randomly has contacted me again a few days ago just to show her appreciation again for the dress. So I wanted to use that as kind of an example of how satisfying my job is, because I have people who really appreciate their items. I'm also a personal shopper / treasure hunter. for a lot of repeat visitors to the shop, such as my new friend Kelly in Alabama. She was looking for a god-awful avocado green Afghan, and I didn't have one at the time, but I kept my eyes open for 1 week, and then I happened to come across one. So that usually happens to me when I'm looking for something. It comes to me, so I love that. So she's now gotten 3 Afghans from me, and we actually talk a lot. She texts me a lot, and we talk about retro styles and decorating and that kind of stuff, refinishing furniture. And so I make a lot of friends this way. It's very satisfying in that way as well. And retro colors like avocado green and orange and gold, they're actually very popular right now. So they're not the ugly colors that were thought of maybe, in the 80s or something. They became like the uglier colors, but they're actually very much in right now. So they actually, vintage fits in with minimalist lifestyle, if you can believe it or not, because people really like to have a very few select, very awesome vintage pieces as opposed to a large quantity of the more fast fashion type things that are made overseas. And so USA made is very big for collectors to be made in the USA, because not much is made in the USA anymore, unfortunately. So yeah, I do collect Afghans as well as vintage fashions. They're fun to photograph, and I do have a fondness for vintage textile items. Oh boy, I can't really reach. Hold on, I'll show you. Okay, so I have this adorable baby's dress right here, and this one's very special, and I do collect stuff like this, handmade, thank you, handmade, crocheted. This one's crocheted by my mother. Isn't that sweet? And I wore this as a baby, and she actually had this pattern published, so she's a very talented woman. So I do collect dresses like this as in baby stuff, but I also do collect women's things. Crocheted and knit things are very collectible as well, because they take a ton of time to make, and people love them. So maybe I can park it here for a minute. Can I take a drink of water? That's good. Okay. Okay, a question I get a lot is how I ended up in Oelwein. Well, my husband and I, he's right there. Is he the only guy in here? He is. Oh, yep. Oh, sorry. My husband and I were living in California for 13 years. He was finishing his dissertation at the UC Davis, and we decided that we wanted to move back home after 13 years. We were both raised here in the Midwest, and so our parents, they both sets live up in southwest Wisconsin, and so we had a 2-hour radius where we wanted to find a house, and so we found a house online, and we had them go check it out for us. We didn't even see it, and we decided let's just go and move, and so we did, and it was like 2 weeks later that we moved here. Is that right? 2 weeks later? So we've been here for almost 5 years, and we actually very much love it. So we've met just a lot of great people here, and we have a good time. So thank you, Oelwein, for being so hospitable. We have 2 kids. We have one in high school now and one in middle school, and they love it here as well. So, and I have no trouble finding any vintage here, so it's been great. I found a lot in California because, California has a lot of fashion there and whatever, but here in the Midwest is where the Rust Belt is, where things were actually manufactured a lot, and so I do find things here a lot. About a year and a half ago, I was able to purchase a second house just for my business, which I feel was just heaven sent, because one house with 4 people and the size of collection that I have is very uncomfortable, to say the least. We had dresses hanging in every part of the room. I still kept it kind of organized, but still, like in the living room, we'd have dresses hanging right in front of the couch. right next to you as you were sitting down, and so it was not very fun. I'm able to do most of my business now there, including taking the pictures. The main part of having the house for me was to have good natural lighting so I could take pictures there. And so the upstairs is designated for picture taking, and so it's just been great. I've been able to grow my business by being here in this area, and I've had an exciting thing happen earlier this year. My shop was chosen to be featured in its first national magazine. And if you haven't seen it, I put a copy of it in the display case on the table there. It was really exciting. So I had a nice 2-page color spread, and it talked about my business and everything. So that was fun. And I was contacted by the same editor a few weeks ago, and I'm actually going to be featured in another vintage-related piece about vintage swimwear. So I'm going to be the vintage swimwear expert, which is surprising to some people that I might collect vintage swimwear, but swimwear and lingerie is actually very collectible, especially if it's prior to the 60s. I sell a lot of it. Even things like bras and panties, believe it or not, if they're in really good condition, they're very, very collectible because they're not something that people normally keep. So when I find it, I get excited about that. So, and we do photograph it on live models and everything, and it's very, very cute. Let's see. I'm not sure if you know this or picked up on this, but I used to do professional photography for a living. I've kind of switched gears into working more for myself. But up in Humboldt County, Wisconsin, Humboldt County, California, I did a lot of professional photography, like senior portraits and weddings and modeling portfolios. And that's how I started acquiring vintage pieces for photo shoots and whatnot. So, does anybody know any of the girls who have modeled for me before? Anybody? Lydia does. You probably know a lot of them then, right? Yeah, 2 of them, yeah. So I have a lot of really local girls now who model for me. I used to have girls coming all the way from Madison, which I kind of lived in that area before, and so I knew a lot of girls who lived in that area. And then I have still some coming from Iowa City, but as of this last year, I've been able to really get a lot of really local girls to come in who live in Oelwein or live in the Oelwein area. So it's been really great to have the convenience of having somebody so close. So I really appreciate the girls who work with me. So a little bit about photo shoots. Usually it takes me about 2 whole days to get a photo shoot ready. I spend a lot of time on really perfecting an outfit, so I decide on what decade I want to do and what particular style I want to convey for this set. And then I have to dig through my collection, and it's pretty organized, but it takes me a long time to coordinate outfits. So I find dresses, and then I find matching gloves, and I find matching hats, and matching accessories and matching shoes, and then the girl comes to the studio and I do her hair and makeup. Usually I do her hair and makeup. Some girls like to do their own, but usually I do their hair and makeup, so that takes time as well. Usually shoots are about 5 hours long. So let's see here. If you've ever visited my website, you'll know what I mean by I photograph everything as a whole, but then I photograph everything separately as well. And so, like if I'm photographing a hat, I'll imply a little bit of the dress in it too, to kind of make it all matching and coordinated, because that's how I like to do it. And I think it's very fun. It keeps me artistically happy, I guess. So if you haven't been to my website, I do have cards on the table. If you want to check out my website or contact me, you're always welcome to do so. I always have to be very careful with models' measurements, so I'm very particular about measurements because I have to make sure that everything fits really well. Because if I bring something out, I have to have it fitting well, otherwise it's kind of a waste of my time. I have to put the whole outfit back reshoot it at some other time, so I really pay attention to measurements. And I have all sizes models. It's very important to me to photograph things on the correct size. And so I have everything from petite to extra large, and so I really try to keep a variety of sizes. Though it's the larger size items that are more collectible because there's just not as many around. The further back in time that you go, the more petite the ladies were. So it's harder to find the larger sizes. Let's see. Well, okay, so this is the fun part. I talked a little bit about myself, right? So, are you guys ready for another blast of the past?
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
so am I. Okay, I'm gonna step out here again. Okay, I'm gonna invite my first model to come out and join me, and we're gonna play a game and guess which decade she's from, okay? So just shout it out if you know what decade she's from. Please welcome my beautiful Casey. Woo, Casey! Oh my gosh, you look stunning. Look at her. What decade?
20s.
Ooh, I like that. I like it. This is a good example of something that is inspired by. So this is an outfit that's actually from the 60s that's inspired by the 20s. And so her outfit is, for me, it's inspired personally by an actress in a movie. Of the 60s. Yes. Breakfast at Tiffany's. Did somebody I did hear it? Yes. So she has the inspired look from Breakfast at Tiffany's. So, Casey, I'm gonna kind of outline a little bit on how I find my vintage pieces. So, Casey, why don't you come over here? So Casey's beautiful marabou purse here. Isn't that cool? I found this only a few weeks ago. I wanted to share with you. I'm gonna twist here. I wanted to share with you some very recent items that I found. And so I found this purse at an estate sale of Jean Hassler in Iowa City just a few weeks ago. And she was a very fashionable lady who wore vintage things anywhere she went. And her family told me all about her, and I was just honored to have gotten some things from her collection. So I found the purse, and I wanted to share it today because later that day I went to my favorite Iowa City thrift store, and I found this dress. And the dress has feathers on it, and it's from the same era, and I just thought it just fits so awesomely. And so I pulled it all together with, the rhinestone accents here, and I think it just looks adorable. So I know that this is a vintage dress because it has a Union Made in the USA label on the inside. Have you guys seen that? You probably are familiar with it if you're familiar with vintage dresses at all. That's a good indication that something is vintage. And then we're going to show the back a little bit here. So the back has this awesome asymmetric zipper, first of all, but the zipper itself is metal USA zipper. And so that's something collectors also look for, is the metal USA zipper. So I added the boa because I knew it had a 20s look to it. So let's give Casey another round of applause, shall we? I have to thank Casey for being here today. She has an adorable, almost 2-year-old daughter, and I've been working with Casey now for a few times over this last few months. And I've seen her confidence level just go high, and it's just so great to see. So thank you so much, Casey. So we're going to invite our next model up, if you want to make Casey's forehead in that area.
Even on this side of the glass, she could come around
Oh,
here.
that would be a good idea.
Close-up view here as
Yeah,
well.
there you go. Okay, are we ready for the next decade? So just yell it out if you know the decade that Miss Barbara's from. Look at this gorgeous honey.
60s for sure.
Woo! Woo, yes. I would say, yeah, late 50s, early 60s. Yes, she's wearing a strapless tulle dress. They can't get enough of you, Barbara. I knew I had to have a red dress because I really wanted to wear red. Red is my favorite color, and it's the color of my shop. But I decided that this one was worth it because it was so special. So I knew I had to have this one. And okay, you see in your programs today, you see 2 red dresses in your program. I was gonna bring one of those, but a few days after the program came out, Julia from New Jersey, she bought these 2 dresses. Just out of the blue, those 2 dresses out of the over 200 dresses that I have in my shop. So I thought that was just a very strange coincidence. I did tell her, Julia in New Jersey, about this coincidence, and she was kind of blown away herself, and she wanted me to say hello to you all today. And she says she's very happy with her new to her dresses. So, and we'll see. The dress actually came to me in an original box, and it has never been worn. It's the original box was from Louise Frock Shop in Ottumwa, Iowa. And so a lot of times I'll come across things that are very local, and so I really look for advertising and labels that are from Iowa or from the Midwest, because that makes it even more special to me. And then it's complemented by her black bolero and her black purse and her black hat with rose is from Paris. So, and her pearl necklace here belonged to her mother. And so that is very special to Barb. I actually ended up with Barb's mother's wedding dress, and I am very excited about that. So thank you so much, Barb, for doing that. Okay, I think we are on to our next one. Next, we have my dear sweet Madison. Which decade is she from, you think? Anybody guess? This is a tough one. 40s? Close? 30s. 30s. Yep. This is a very special set here, and I don't see him. I invited him, Scott Bronze of Oelwein. Anybody know him? Scott Bronze of Oelwein? He lives over in that part of town. I found this set just a few weeks ago on yard sale day, if you can believe it. I do go to yard sales a lot, and I just happened to find this set along with, do you remember seeing that trunk when you came in, the trunk with the picture? Everybody was asking about the picture. And this is the dress that's in that picture. So this was worn by, let me get this right, Alice Zurley Warwick. She wore it in 1938, and this was her original bridal set. So this is a handmade dress. This is a very unique stitch here, the little tufting on the flowers. So when I went to this yard sale, Scott asked me, are you looking for anything in particular? And of course I always say, well, I always keep my eye open for vintage fashion type items. And he's like, let me, I have an idea. And so he comes out with this beautiful turn of the century suitcase that you see out there. And it had a beautiful folded up dress in there, and it had the shoes in there that you see out there, the little white satin shoes. They're like this big, tiny little shoes. And the veil was in there. This veil has probably faded a little bit over time, but the veil was in there along with a little hanky that was probably original. And so I tell you, I just about cried. It was just so beautiful. And then he said, you know, I have a picture of her in this dress. So I really just about freaked out, and so it was just so beautiful that I, of course, when it fit Madison like it did, I had to have it here today. Obviously, it just looked so adorable on Madison. And Madison and I were talking. We're wondering if you guys think that it's more Snow White or more Cinderella. What do we think? I heard a few Cinderellas. Yeah. She said Cinderella. I said Snow White because Snow White, the Disney version, she actually has the big puff sleeves like this, and the Snow White Disney version came out in 1938, so it was a very close time frame, and it really had the sleeves and the Cinderella color. I get it. I think it's like a combination. In any case, it's princessy, right? Madison has been so fun to work with over the last few months. I've worked with her since November, and she has really been like the new face of my store. She's just been great. She conforms to any kind of theme that I want to do. We've done everything from 50s formal wear to 70s retro to vintage swimwear to our last one, don't laugh, was an 80s shoot. So I did her hair pretty big, and I got out all my 80s stuff that would fit her, and I brought a red electric guitar, and I had her in roller skates. I had her chewing and blowing big bubbles, and she was just rocking out on the guitar. She just has no fear, and it is just so fun to shoot with her. Thank you so much, Madison. I really appreciate it. And last but not least, Mom, I have my mom here today. So I wanted to invite my mom out because she is awesome. She has just been so inspirational to me in so many ways. And she's wearing a Victorian jacket. This is actually a late 1800s true vintage jacket. And so it's a very rare find because vintage Victorian pieces are usually in a condition that just are not wearable. There's usually shredding on the inside, but this one is wearable. And I wanted to have her show you an outfit that she would put together because she has always been so inspirational in her outfits. Come up here. Come up here. You just want to stand in the middle. Come up here by me. So she has always made our things from when we were babies, and when I told her that I wanted a piece to show you, like the little crochet dress, she happily brought over probably 100 or so outfits from our childhood, and she was so excited about sharing some of this stuff. So thank you so much, Mom. It was just Mother's Day, and so I thought it would be a fun way to incorporate Mother's Day and to say thank you. And actually, Mother's Day is also her birthday. And so I thought I would say happy birthday to you in front of everybody because I love you so much. Catastrophe. So that, I think, is about all the time I have. I wanted to thank you all again for listening, and thanks my models for being here. Thanks to Dawn for inviting me here. I did bring a few other pieces, but they're just kind of for looks, I guess. I wanted to show you this one because some of you might know Rose Grandinetti. I got quite a large collection from her, and she just had some really gorgeous pieces. And so this one was from her. That would fit you really well. Yeah.
I'm going to try that right now.
Okay, so thank you all.
Thank you, Taillon, for a lovely presentation and a program that I am sure everyone enjoyed. I'd also like to say that Taillon has said maybe if some of you want to stay around after door prizes, she'd like to kind of get a photo shoot, a little selfie of those in attendance who would like to have their pictures taken.